Driven to Bankruptcy by Afterpay. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your hashtag inflation not sponsored coffee, and let's check out this article discussing a family that was driven to bankruptcy by using buy now, pay later. Now this is a really sad story, what we're going to see here. But there's some lessons we can all take away from this. And I think the number one lesson, which I don't think anyone is exposed to in Australia as much as they should be, is to have an emergency fund. You need to have a pool of money you can use in case of emergencies, so you're not depending upon things like buy now, pay later, loan sharks, or credit cards to get ahead. I'm trying to think back. I know my parents would have mentioned it. My father would have mentioned stuff like that. I don't know if we were ever taught it in school. But there's already too much in the curriculum now. But it's something that needs to be driven home. We need to shift the culture so it's cool to have an emergency fund. You know, it should be like comparing emergency fund sizes. How many months do you have? How many weeks do you have? And encouraging people to build it up. I guess maybe that's a bit naive on my part. So a Victorian family faced bankruptcy from buy now, pay later debt as warnings issued about Afterpay Day. I don't know what Afterpay Day is. We'll have to see. A Victorian family with a newborn were forced to make tough decisions between paying the rent and buying food, plunging them into a ruthless debt situation. And it sounds like everything went wrong for this family. Just the shit hit the fan, one thing after another. Catherine and her partner were scrambling to cover the costs of groceries with a newborn baby and racked up thousands in buy now, pay later debt to stay afloat. But when they couldn't pay the money back, they said the ruthless providers pursued them hard. All the marketing from these companies, it's all nice and friendly, and it's all bullshit. They're not your friends. Just the fact that they're giving you money, they're using you to earn money from. They're taking advantage of your lack of financial ability, skill, and planning, and they're making money off that. That's their entire business. They're not nice. Okay, they're not doing this out of the goodness of their heart. They're doing it because they can make cash from it. So, of course, they're going to pursue you ruthlessly. The 40-year-old, so 40 years old, my age, a little younger, without an emergency fund. Now, it's okay. You might be the 40, older, 50, 60, thinking, I don't have an emergency fund. It's too late. It's never too late. Never too late to even start putting, an extra $20 away a week to build something up, something separate just there in case something goes wrong. And all of a sudden, after enough time, you got a couple of hundred, you got $1,000. Something happens. You can draw upon that. That is designed to be a stress relief. It's to take that worry, that fear of just not having enough money, of living paycheck to paycheck away. And it can probably be one of the best stress relief things someone could ever do in their lives. None of this stupid, going off on a retreat or a holiday or any of these things. Just having a bunch of cash sitting there, that's your emergency fund, that's a stress relief. They opened accounts with Afterpay and Zip since their inception, and had previously treated them like a credit card, where she never spent more than she could afford to repay over 4 installments. Well, this is the thing. You shouldn't be, if you don't have the cash for it, you shouldn't be buying it, should you? But then things started to get very wrong over the past 12 months as her financial situation started to disintegrate. The couple had relocated to regional Victoria to take up manager positions in traffic control. But it didn't work out and both were forced to find new jobs. Catherine picked up a 6-month contract and found out unexpectedly she was having a baby, having previously been told she could not get pregnant. Now this is the really happy thing about the story, that they're 40 years old and she's having a baby. That's really late and that's really lucky. And they should be applauded that they're pushing through and keeping the baby. Because sadly, we're in a culture now where how many people would just kill it. So let's keep going. That's a good thing, a good sign of their character right there. Her partner was working as a labourer, but as Catherine was in a contract role, it meant she would have had no access to paid parental leave. We weren't planning or budgeting for the pregnancy. And that's why you need to have an emergency fund. That's why the younger people watching this need to see this as a lesson and learn from the mistakes and challenges that people who have gone before you have faced. And that's where it spiraled out of control. I was about to go off having a wage. We had other debts, and see, that's the problem as well. So they had other debts as well. We'd taken on, for example, car repayments. That's the problem, guys. It's these repayments. It's the Dave Ramsey concern over car repayments. We saw, remember we watched a video, a clip, where people in a car yard were bragging about how much they were spending on car repayments. I mean, once you get, if the only debt you have is your mortgage, that's really manageable for many people, unless you bought in the last few years during the mania and went a bit crazy. But if you've got no other debt, just the mortgage, that's standard. You should be able to manage that if you haven't gone stupid. But then you got the credit card, then you got the buy now pay later, then you got the zip pay, and then you got the car payments. You got all of that getting just hoovered out of your account every month. It adds up real quick. She was not expecting to get pregnant and stop working, she told the paper. We had payments that we had to budget for on a single wage, which became financially difficult. Our baby was very sick, and at 8 days old, he was transferred to hospital for 2 weeks in Melbourne. So my partner had to stop work for 2 weeks, and that caused us a lot of grief. We fell behind on things like rent and everything, and it all went downhill. We had to turn to buy now, pay later. When we got cornered, we looked at options to get essentials like groceries and had to make hard decisions on putting food on the table. So she's using it to buy food. Catherine said the couple used Afterpay and Zip to buy gift cards for Coles and Woolworths, meaning they could pay a minimum of $50 up front but access the $200 gift cards so they could buy food and nappies. Okay, I'm not sure. So when you're buying the gift cards on these services, do you have to pay $50 and you get $200 worth? Is that how it works? And then you could... They were leveraging their money for groceries. And nappies are expensive. See, and this is the problem. They're going to Coles and Woolies. Aldi is cheaper. They may not have one around them. I mean, that should make an impact on where you decide to move as much as the school, what local shopping centres you have. It spiraled out of control. We got put into a corner where we had no choice, but we knew the risks of doing it, she said. My partner's work was wavering and he got made redundant 2 weeks before Christmas. So we were scrambling and pretty much trying to stay afloat, and the system came undone. They didn't really have a system, I would say. They were screwed and they just kept digging their hole in. I mean, what can you do? You need to up your income. They need to move. They need to do something. But at 40, I mean, it's not like you can always move back in with your parents at this age. You know? That's the problem. Could they draw on their super fund in emergency times? Isn't that the point of that? We were essentially spending money on these gift cards that we didn't have, but that was for groceries and to live. The cost of living was also battering the couple with rising petrol prices, while their rent was hiked and they were already behind. In order to stay where we were with a brand new baby, the rent had to be a priority. And this is where buy now, pay later became a problem. At the time, it went up $20. But we were behind already and paying an extra $100 a week on top of what rent was to try and catch it back up. It was quite distressing as everything spiraled out of control. So they had car payments, buy now, pay later payments. They dug into a lot of buy now, pay later debt. Their rent had gone up because we're in the middle of a rental crisis. They were behind on their rent and they were paying extra. And they're having to drive into Melbourne for their baby with regards, and that's burning petrol. And then driving to and from work is burning petrol. Why is Australia the lucky country, guys? Catherine said even now, they currently are still 2 to 3 months behind on their rent. Then there is the buy now, pay later debt. She said she has $3,000 owed on Zip for both Zip Pay, which is an online shopping wallet, and Zip Money, a line of credit, while there's $500 outstanding to Afterpay. So we're not talking big sums here, guys, that's sending them to the wall. These aren't like some of the disaster stories where people have racked up 40 grand on credit card debt or pissed it away in the pokies. These are people with 3 grand, $500 outstanding on a Zip Pay and Afterpay. And they're viewers who are watching right now who wouldn't even blink at that much money. But that's enough to send you right to the wall when you're in this terrible situation. And this is where, when I make, when I show this chart here, where is it? The household income differences in Australia. This is where the class divide in Australia is huge. It's a lot bigger than a lot of people realize. And I think it's just going to get worse now with housing affordability. Housing used to be the tool to bridge the classes, to bridge the gap. You'd immigrate to Australia, you could buy a house, raise a family, and lift your family up a rung on the social ladder. Can you do that anymore? I don't think it's as easy as the past. Meanwhile, her partner also has debts, possibly in the thousands, with buy now, pay later providers. So, if they've got a kid together, I'd be going, why aren't you married? Why isn't all the finances together? Who's controlling it? But I've been watching too much Dave Ramsey. We also have debts with Klarna, OpenPay. Any buy now, pay later, we had already tried, with around 50 to 60 on those she added. So they've just gone through all of them. Shit. It's not big, but we're using every system we could to get gift cards for groceries. Catherine said their situation became quite severe, and at the end of last year, they reached out to a financial counsellor at the National Debt Helpline as their debt spiraled. We said, we have a problem. We need to speak to someone and get this figured out, as we are about to go bankrupt and lose our cars, she said. I've tried to contact Zip on a number of occasions, and there was no understanding and no leeway. Even the financial counsellor has had issues with both providers to negotiate terms. Afterpay sent debt collectors. These companies are pretty ruthless. They are not understanding. When you contact these companies and tell them you're under financial hardship, they kick it back in your face. But when a financial counsellor does it, they don't listen then. But then they're legally forced to stop repayments. She added she could not speak to Afterpay on the phone at all. An Afterpay spokesman said it did not decline hardship requests and offered flexible payment timelines, where, if agreed, added no additional fees or costs. Unlike traditional banks and lenders, we don't require customers to provide evidence of their hardship, for example. Other lenders require evidence that consumers have lost their jobs or are suffering from an illness. We do not require this. We make it as simple as possible, he said. We find that overwhelmingly customers prefer not to have to explain their sensitive situations verbally. For those customers that would prefer a discussion, we enable telephone discussions on request. So can you just apply for it online? Let me know, guys. I've never used any of these things. I'm too old. I did the stupid thing and got a credit card when I was younger. I still have one. I still haven't bothered to cancel it. I haven't used it. I keep getting the statements sent to me on paper, like a boomer, and I still haven't bothered to cancel it. I've shifted everything over. I got me like one of those Visa debit FPOS things, so that any of the transactions, like my Microsoft 365 that comes out every month, just gets hoovered out of the business account. So I haven't even used it. I should get rid of it. I'll add that to my list. He added that the hardship arrangements with Afterpay represented just 0.49% of its active customer base. The spokesperson said they would work with collection partners, but use a light touch collections process, which is overwhelmingly based on text messages and emails rather than phone calls. I mean, I actually found one of my OneNote entries from years ago where I'd listed out all of these debt collection agencies that I'd contacted to try and hound a client who owed me $15,000. I never got the money. They were all pretty useless. But it's just interesting, the process that you can go through with these organizations. So that's my encounter with it. And I know I heard a whole lot of stories. I have a broker friend who used to be in debt collection, and that was a crazy business. Well, I've also watched those shows. There's a show on the UK, Can't Afford to Pay, We Take It Away. That's reality TV that should be mandatory watching in school. We cannot legally enforce debts. We do not legally enforce debts, nor do we sell debts to collection agencies, he said. If a customer does not pay us back, they're no longer able to use our service. Catherine acknowledged that people need to take responsibility for using these types of services, but for the couple, it was circumstances beyond their control. And she wasn't buying fancy things. Instead, she turned to buy now, pay later to save and put food on the table. She should have gone to a charity. She should have gone to a food bank. But that's a humbling process. The mum of one wanted to warn people not to use the services unless they are employed and are prepared to pay for items in the allocated time. No, don't even use them at all. Honestly, don't even use them at all. There's some people that can work the system, like using a credit card, and there's one guy who contacted me and explained how he bought a home in Tasmania, paid it off real quick by getting everyone else to give him cash, and he would pay their bills using his credit card and then put their cash off his mortgage, and it would take it out at the end of the month. So we'd get that extra 30 days of all of this money. But I'm there going, mate, you're running a business there, a bill paying service for other people, and that's not something everyone can do. What if you're a professional and you've got friends and they've got expenses, but it's through their business, or they want to claim it, or they want to do the same thing? This isn't something you should be encouraging people to do. To work the credit card system to hit your mortgage real hard. But I mean, people can do it. I would just say don't use any of these things. The debtor is slave to the lender. Okay? Don't use the credit cards. Don't use the buy now, pay later. I know it's hard when you're on the edge, but go to a food bank. Go to a charity. Go to the Salvos. Go to a church. Ask them for food. Her warnings come as Afterpay Day lands on March 16th, when consumer groups are urging people to be aware that a shopping spree could easily become a case of buy now, pay later. Afterpay Day? 5 consumer groups have teamed up together to call on Aussies not to be lured into Afterpay's opportunistic marketing campaign, which will see major retailers tempting people into unregulated loans that could become a financial mess when repayments are due. Financial Counselling Australia's CEO Fiona Guthrie said financial counsellors are repeatedly dealing with the fallout from buy now, pay later marketing gimmicks that encourage impulse buying. We're seeing it again and again. People facing financial hardships because without proper rules around buy now, pay later lending, it is too easy for people to get in over their heads, she said. Financial counsellors often help people who have made a series of what seems like small purchases but quickly adds up to a lot of money. That's the thing. All of these little things that you buy that you don't need, that's just rubbish. It adds up to a big amount. Pretty soon people get overwhelmed. They miss a payment and are hit with late payment fees and possibly account keeping fees, and their debt starts to snowball. Yeah, this is the opposite of the snowball technique of paying off one debt and then another debt and then another debt. This is one purchase and another purchase and another purchase. It's rolling up the avalanche, back up the hill. In the case of today's hot buying becomes tomorrow's headache. Okay. She added people buying a few items over the next few weeks could suddenly find they have committed the equivalent of their food or rent to buy now, pay later repayments. Customer Action Law Centre CEO Stephanie Tonkin was also quick to criticize buy now, pay later as unregulated credit that was exploiting loopholes in the system. We hear all the time from people who don't have one buy now, pay later debt, they have multiple accounts, which push them into a debt spiral and financial crisis. Stunts like Afterpay Day are just going to make it worse for those already struggling to get by. Warnings like this one wouldn't be necessary if buy now, pay later was fully regulated under the Credit Act. You reckon? People still rack up a huge amount of credit card debt. Financial Rights License Centre CEO Karen Cox added many budgets are already stretched by rising interest rates, rents and inflation, and encouraging people to acquire more debt without any checks and balances on their ability to pay is still setting them up to fail. Choice CEO Alan Kirkland said buy now, pay later providers frequently use marketing tactics like Afterpay Day to encourage people to take on extra debt. These tactics include offering discounts in order to make people feel like they'll be missing out on a good deal unless they buy on the spot. Buy now, pay later providers are taking advantage of loopholes. This means they don't have to do checks whether a loan is affordable before providing it. Consumer Credit Legal Centre WA principal solicitor. Well, this is why it's so cheap. Because they don't have to jump through those loopholes. I'd argue it's one of the reasons why they can provide such a convenient and cheap system that they do. So do we want to allow this market to keep operating? Because, I mean, there are some people that take advantage of it. Or do we want to regulate it to the point where it's not affordable anymore? I'd say give people the choice. I'd say, don't do it, don't use it, but do you want to ban it? That's the argument I put forward. Just because I think something is stupid to do, should we ban it from allowing people having the option to do it or not? Others would argue, just ban it then. Consumer Credit Legal Centre WA Principal Solicitor Roberta Grealish added it was hugely problematic that people don't view buy now pay later as credit, so they don't take it as seriously when they sign up. These types of marketing campaigns only compound the problem, she said. We know that the consequences can be just as serious as other forms of credit. We must change the rhetoric. The Afterpay spokesman said it was a signatory to the voluntary buy now pay later code of conduct, which he claimed has enshrined consumer protection measures across the industry. Research by Accenture, commissioned by Afterpay, found that vulnerable consumers gain the most from switching from credit cards to Afterpay, he noted. The most vulnerable credit card users pay up to 7 times more in fees compared to Afterpay users. Afterpay is an important alternative to credit cards. I mean, this is the problem. People probably just not making enough money, especially in times of rising interest rates. Ooh. It's imperative shoppers have an option to spend their money responsibly without incurring interest charges. Afterpay Day is an opportunity for consumers to make the most of the deals that are available to save on important purchases. Zip co-founder Peter Gray said the company takes its commitment to responsible lending seriously and have always operated above a higher standard than our peers. Zip has held an Australian credit license since inception in 2013 and conducted ID checks and affordability tests on all of our customers in Australia. This is why we see less than 0.2% of our customers experiencing hardship. He added Zip has hardship programs in place for customers doing it tough. We also partner with charities like Way Forward, a not-for-profit that offers free debt advice and financial support to help people experiencing financial hardship get back on track. Zip meets with financial counsellors and consumer advocacy groups on a quarterly basis, and we are constantly looking for ways to improve the way we work with our customers who need support. The federal government is currently considering options to bring tighter credit controls on buy now pay later providers and their services, which with major banks such as ANZ and Westpac and the corporate regulator ASIC backing onerous new rules that may require credit card style expense checking of customers. So there we go. Well, let's have a bit of a talk about this one, guys. So that's a pretty sad story there of people falling into just a debt spiral with one thing leading on to another, leading on to another. The only takeaway is you need an emergency fund that you have to work to build upon as you go forward in life. So if something like this happens, you're not depending on loan sharks or buy now pay later or credit card. You know what'll be interesting? With Labor looking to change people's ability to access superannuation, what if someone's in a tough situation like this and you need your super to keep your home? Will that be allowed anymore? I guess they'll get you in social housing one way or another. Hey, comrade? Anyway, thanks for watching. Check out Heise BIM and Heise Does for other content I create. And if you're a fan of the channel and enjoy the content I make, you can support us on YouTube or Patreon. But don't support any content creator if you've got credit card debt or you're in trouble. Okay? This is a luxury. All of the content creators on YouTube and any of these platforms are a luxury. Do not pay to watch them. They don't need your money, okay? They make enough off the advertising. Don't listen to any of the bullshits where they bitch and moan that they don't. You can use our referral links, Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, AussieBroadband, if you're buying something that is a necessity, or our pocket squares, which are most certainly a necessity. And call us if you need an architect, guys. Take care, have a great day, and I will see you in the next episode of HeiseSays. Bye for now.